That was on the RAF College Cranwell up in Lincolnshire. So, and that in itself was an interesting one because you go from, so having done the airman training at Swinderby, so I went to Swinderby, I was in Leroy Block, I even still remember. Leroy Block, you have your room of, I don't know, 20, 24 people, bed packs, straight lines, sleeping on the floor so you didn't lie in your bed because of morning inspection, toothbrushes, cleaning around sinks and toilets, the whole works. But actually it wasn't awful because I think we were brought up quite tidy and you had to clean. So actually for me, it wasn't awful at all. Ironing, it was quite an experience. It was hilarious, if I'm really honest, because it was only 6 weeks. And if you can't cope with 6 weeks of that, then quite frankly, you shouldn't join the military. But it's 6 weeks and it was just doing your stuff and just sucking it up and getting on with it, you know. Someone shout at you, you just say, yes, Sergeant, no, Sergeant, yes, Sergeant, no, Sergeant. You know, so, and actually an interesting one, which, you know, you may choose to use on this one. But when I was at airman training, two corporals, the Corporal Hannett and Sergeant Cato, and they recognised I was the only black guy in, I think, the whole intake. And so we were all on parade on one of the early days. I can't remember the first or second day. One of the early days, 3 flights out on parade, and Sergeant Cato stood at the front, and everyone was standing to attention, and he said, along the lines of, "Most of you will notice we have a dark chap here. He's not a. If you want to call him anything, you may call him Chalky." Is that right, Chalky? Yes, Sergeant Cato. If I hear anyone call him anything other than that, or his name, if he likes you, you'll be off this training unit. End of story. You know, and you've got to level that. So he was trying to set a standard now. Is Chalky acceptable? It's probably better than the other alternatives. But it was just this thing that he somehow felt that he had to make a point in that audience. And I'm not sure whether it was a good or bad point. You look back and you go, at the time, it was like people were sort of, oh, crikey. But I had no problems with anybody on that entire setup there. So. Well, it's an interesting one to ask, actually. How did I feel? Because I grew up in Smethwick. You know, you grew up in the days of skinheads and rockers. You go into Birmingham City, you get abused on the bus, you get racial. It was, you know, getting racial slurs was nothing new. You just live with it. Mum always said, people can call you what they want as long as they don't touch you. And they said that, you know, as long as they don't touch you, let them have that. And people did that all the time. But in that, I suppose, in a more formal setting, which was Swinderby, I'd never been in that position before. I'd never been in a position where somebody was saying to people, "You're not allowed to do this. I don't want you to do this." The only thing you can do is, so it's like a halfway house between people just completely having freedom, which is everyday life, day-to-day life, and then now an environment where there was somebody who was there with his P/P like that on his face, telling everyone there that this behaviour is not acceptable. So how did I feel? Probably confused, if I'm being honest with you. I just Sergeant Cato in that sort of airman day 2 standing to attention, like he actually knows who I am amongst all these people, and just nodded to it and cracked on. Yeah, it was an interesting one. Yeah.